Hello, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. I'm very excited because this is episode 47 of Embrace the Chase, the second one of the year, and this is my very first live interview. Everything's been done online, so this is very exciting. But you all have the pleasure tonight of hearing Janet E. Irvin, who is a two-time published author when it comes to physical novels, but when it comes to short stories, she's been published for a very long time. But without further ado, Ms. Irvin, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you, Jordan, for letting me be a part of your podcast. It's always a pleasure to keep in touch with former students, and of course, that's part of my story. But to see what each of you are doing with your lives, and it's kind of exciting to see where you're going. So thanks for letting me be part of this.
Of course, I'm excited to hear your story. So for myself, of course, and obviously other people who are not aware of who you are, could you kind of start us from the beginning, tell us your story of what led you to become an author?
Well, I think like many people who want to write, I started as everyone did. As a small child, I wrote stories. My father, of course, was my first fan and was convinced that a story I wrote when I was 11 about a penny and its journey should have been published. But I just continued to write with the idea that once I got out of a university, that I would go on and follow my dream. But life has a way of interrupting your plans, and you know what they say about the best laid plans of mice and men, well, of women too. So I also trained to be a teacher because that was also something that I was very much drawn to, and ended up getting married. My husband was drafted when he graduated from college, and 12 days after we were married, he went in the service. So plans that we had for starting our own life together were put on hold. And then we started a family. I thought after our second child was going to be born that I would be able to seriously write. But this is one of the things that life throws at you that you don't expect. Our second child was born profoundly retarded. And this was such a traumatic experience for us and required so much other attention that my dreams of being a writer were put on hold. And in fact, in many ways, I lost my voice, my writing voice when that happened. But there were some things that occurred as time went on that allowed me to keep writing. I have lots of little pieces of paper where I scribbled my poems, my story ideas, my efforts to write essays, and put them all in a folder, but that's all I did. They stayed there. And then in the 90s, some things happened that allowed me to find that voice again. Two really important organizations gave that chance back to me. The first was the Ohio Writer Project. This was a project that believed that if you were going to be a teacher teaching writing, and I taught English and Spanish, so I taught writing to my students. If you were a teacher teaching writing, then you should also write. The Ohio Project was at Miami University. I took summer classes there, and one of the things we had to do was turn out pieces of writing. I still have the notebook that I produced during those 6 weeks. And I began to believe again that that dream that had been set aside so many years ago was actually going to possibly happen again. And the second thing that happened around the same time is I found enough money to attend the Antioch Writers Workshop, which was here locally at Yellow Springs, has since moved to the University of Dayton as of last year. But this is an organization that allows writers to craft their pieces and to study under poets and nonfiction writers and fiction writers. And again, the thing that they give to people is the belief in your individual voice. After going to both of those, I started to write and send things out. and found that little by little, it wasn't instant success. There aren't that many of us who acquire instant success, but little by little, my pieces began to be accepted. Since I was teaching full time, I couldn't write or devote the time to a novel. So I just kept writing short stories, some essays. I'm kind of a closet poet. I don't think I'm that good as a poet, but I like to write poetry. So I always have some of those going. But what happened then was, at the end of my teaching career, I decided that I would retire and devote myself to writing. And so that's how the novels came to be.
I love it. So then, I remember when you retired, it wasn't very long afterwards that The Dark End of the Rainbow came out. Is that right?
That's right.
So this had already been something you've been working on for a while.
I had little bits and pieces going on here and there, but The Dark End of the Rainbow is kind of an interesting novel because it's based on something that actually happened, not all the particulars of it, but the overall idea is based on what is really a very tragic and sad event, which is that sometimes children are left in cars by their parents. And I had read about a teacher who lived near Cincinnati to whom this very tragic thing had happened. So I wrote a short story called Singularity, and I tried to build it around the scientific idea of what is the singularity and how things could disappear into a black hole, and wrote about the effect on the person, the parent, when they realize what had happened. I sent it off to the Zodiac Review. And this doesn't normally happen, but I got an immediate feedback from the editor, which was totally unlikely because it was a Sunday morning even. And I sent it off an hour later. I got feedback and I thought, wow, what's going on? So he wrote me a very, very nice, good piece of criticism. The end result was he didn't think that the story was believable, although the writing was good, and that he didn't think anybody would want to read that kind of a story. But that had happened to him. So he proceeded to tell me the story that, in his case, ended happily and had to do with another family member. And said, but we'll take other pieces, so send us something else if you want to. So I did, and I did actually send a nonfiction piece, which they took right away. But in the meantime, I considered to think about the criticism that he had given me. And I think this is one of the points that I would say at the end of your giving advice, that a rejection can be a learning experience for you. And if you take it and use it to make yourself better, that good things can come of it. So I took this back, and here's what you do when you get a rejection, any kind of rejection. So you have a little wine, W-I-N-E and W-H-I-N-E, yep. And then maybe some chocolate, whatever works for you, binge watch something that you like. But then you go back to the drawing board, in essence, and you say, okay, what was good about this? What was not so good? So I started to get this idea of what if when you remember that you've left the child in the car, you go back to the car and the child is missing. And that is the premise of The Dark End of the Rainbow. That is what the story is built around. And I think that I tried to capture the very human reactions and the guilt feelings and also the mystery involved in this, which I hope captivates people when they read it.
Well, it obviously did. You won the Jeremiah Healy Mystery Award, right?
Yes. Do you want to hear that story?
Please. That's very cool.
Okay. Well, see, all these things happen to you that you don't anticipate are going to happen. So I had written the entire manuscript of this and also some of the second one, but it wasn't complete. I knew I was going back to the Antioch Writers Workshop, and I was intending to pitch this story to an agent. In the meantime, for some unknown reason, you can believe in God's grace, the cosmos, the great creator, whatever it is that you believe in, something said to me that I should enter this contest that just showed up on my feed. You had to send the first 3 pages of your novel, and they were going to decide their finalists based on only those first 3 pages. So I sent the first 3 pages of The Dark End and the first 3 pages of The Rules of the Game, which wasn't finished. And I continued to work on both of them, but of course, The Dark End was finished. Went to Antioch, met with an agent, pitched my story to the agent. The agent said that I should send the entire manuscript. Well, I've learned you can't get too excited about that because they're very nice people, agents. They're not all ogres, and they will try to make you feel good if you make this personal pitch to them. So I knew I was going to send it, and in fact I did. I sent it to her. And in the time between sending that to her and waiting for a response, I was notified that I was a finalist. I had been furiously working on the rules of the game. In case that one was a finalist, it would have to be finished. But that's not the one they chose. They chose this one. Although they told me later they were both in the top 10, which is kind of neat.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So The Dark End of the Rainbow is a finalist. I have to have a bit of brain surgery. I had suffered from a condition called hemifacial spasms for a number of years, had been treated actually with Botox treatments to paralyze the muscles, and had some really severe reactions to that. So I found a doctor at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center who does a very special kind of operation to help with those spasms. You can find it online if you're interested. You can even see the whole surgery. Watch how he does it. In any case, I had to have that surgery. They wanted the finalists to go to Key West to the conference where they were going to announce this at. Well, I had just had this surgery, and my family didn't think it was a good idea for me to go all that way so soon after major surgery. So we fixed up a Skype account, and that's how I found out that I won. I was watching their announcement via Skype when they said that I won.
That's great. And then obviously with the award, you won a publishing contract.
I got a publishing contract. I also got a little bobblehead doll of the man for whom the contest was named. And they paid my airfare to the following conference and to be there to receive the actual presentation in person. So it was very, very nice. Absolutely Amazing eBooks is the name of the publisher. They are very small, independent. So if you're thinking big advance and maybe a book tour, no, that's not going to happen. But it's also not self-publishing. So it's very nice to have a publisher that is behind you and said, hey, send us whatever you write, and if we think it's good enough, we'll publish it. So that's how the second one was published as well. And I just had some communication with them a couple days ago. They said they're looking forward to the next one. So
the rules of the game, what inspired you to write this?
Well, this one is kind of it's a little bit of a love letter to Springboro, Ohio, although it doesn't take place in Springboro. I set both of my books in a fictional town called Hopewell, Ohio, which exists somewhere in the ethosphere between Springboro and Franklin. But there are lots of what people call little Easter eggs in here that if you read it, you would say, oh, I think I know what she's talking about, or I've been there, or I know that place. So it was kind of a way to make a teacher a hero. The main character is a learning disabilities teacher who is also a basketball coach. She discovers a photograph that kind of calls into question everything she knows about her family history and about all the men in her life, including the one who is stalking her. So we have all these characters, one of whom is a really bad guy. This book is a little darker, a little grittier than the first one. But all's well that ends well.
I love it. That's very cool. For those of you watching live right now, by the way, once this is done and posted on Facebook, I'm going to link all the descriptions down below please go check these books out on Amazon. She has high ratings right now. Last time I looked, everything's all 5 stars. They're incredible. Please check them out and support her. But question for you before you enter into your current projects, are these almost kind of like, and I don't mean to say Stephen King-esque as in scary, but are all of your worlds and your books connected to each other? Is it the same universe?
These two have a character and the setting itself in common.
Okay.
And although I'm not going to reprise the same characters in each book, the third one that links to these will do the same thing. So there will be a character from the first and the second book who appears in the third one. So in that way, it's a little bit different in that you're not getting a police procedural. It's not the same private investigator in each one, but there is a connection through the town itself and then through one of the characters who recurs, who shows up again.
I like it. So if you can, you don't have to, but would you be able to talk about the ideas behind the next 3 books that you already have kind of in fruition?
And they're all different. They're all different. And I think this is part of why I'm kind of glad to be part of your embracing your life and leading that kind of life, is that I'm taking chances. And that's important, that you don't just stay with one thing, but that you follow whatever your passion kind of calls forth from you. So I have 3 books, novels that I'm working on now. The first one is called A Principle of Light. It is a women's contemporary fiction, a little more literary bent, although I like action. I like chases and things like that. So it does have some of that in it. But what it does is 2 women, one a Turkish poet and the other an American photographer, witness a bombing in a square in Istanbul. Their knowledge makes them the target of some shadowy forces. And as they seek to escape, they also have to confront the idea of how much are they willing to risk for their individual art and also for the truth. So that one is done. I'm doing the 6th revision on it and trying to make sure that everything is accurate because it's set in a foreign area. I've done a lot of research. I've tried to teach myself Turkish. I will never be fluent, but hopefully I will have got the basics down and do that right. The second book is a working title, Kaleidoscope or The Stone Heart of the World. If you have a preference, let me know. But it's the one that will be the follow-up to these 2. And in that book, when Peter Stone's sister Rose goes missing, she is an up-and-coming sculptor in the art world. She sends him a very mysterious note and an object from their childhood, which causes him to revisit the landscape of his youth to find the clues that will help him discover where she is and why she's gone missing. So that's that one. And then I'm doing one just totally for fun. If you're into paranormal fantasy, yes. It's called Druid's Call. The first book is Awakening. And that one is just really in the draft stage. So that's all I'm going to say about this now. But I've also been doing some research on the Druids and Irish legends. And so that's basically what it's based on, but it's in the present time.
That's very cool. Well, let me know if you need any research done, because I'm going to be in Ireland in a month.
Oh my God, really? Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. Yes, I might. Actually, let me put my mind on that. We might have to go to a couple places and take pictures for me.
Of course. We're doing an entire country tour.
Oh, fantastic.
Big circle. So yeah, let me know. I'd love to do any research for you.
That's great. That's great.
Both of those other books, by the way, sound awesome. Like, I'm really excited for the one set in, is it Istanbul or Istanbul? Istanbul. That one sounds very cool. Almost kind of like Taken, but not Taken.
Yes, in a way, because they're not captured, but they have to move out of Istanbul, and they head down the coast to Cheshire, where lots of historic things happen too, and they're by Ephesus, which is from the Bible, as well as other of the civilizations that were in Turkey. So just a lot of cool stuff. I think that's part of it too. The excitement for me, besides loving the writing, is the research, is learning all these new things. There's always something else to explore and to find out about. And yes, you have challenges, and there have been challenges in my life. So I'm kind of a late bloomer. I'm coming to this at a time when most people maybe don't think about wanting to do this much. But I do, and I'm not ready to give up yet. So I'm embracing the life. That's all.
I love it. I love it. So then what advice would you give to people who are kind of at that point in their life where they feel like their dreams are past gone and they can't go pursue them?
Well, I think for everybody, and it doesn't matter if you're 20 or if you're 70, I think the first thing that's important is you just do it. I borrowed that from Nike. I hope they don't charge me for it. But I think that that's really important, that you can't just sit in the chair or tell your friends, well, someday I'm going to do this. You have to go out and do it. And if what you want to do is, one of the books I'm reading right now is called AWOL on the Appalachian Trail. Guy's 41 years old. He's always wanted to do this. He quits his job and his family allows him to do this. And he just goes out and walks the trail. I think sometimes you're called and we don't listen to that call. And you're called to do these things to make your life as full and as rich as it can be. So do it. The second thing is persevere. And that means if you're going to be a writer, you want to be a writer, you have to get your work out there. The rejections, I've got a whole file folder of rejections. So they're going to come along, and that's just part of it. You just want to keep going, because the most successful people are those who don't give up. And there are plenty of examples we could find in history that make this the truth. The third thing is that what I mentioned earlier is use criticism to help you get better. So if you think everybody's always going to say it's all great, no, they're not going to. So find the kernel of truth in that and take it back to whatever business you're trying to get started or exercise that you want to accomplish, whatever it is in your life that's important to you. Take that back and let that help you make it better. So those are three things. Now, I did write a couple down because I didn't want to forget them. So let me take a quick look here.
Sure.
Okay. I think this too, how many of us have inside of us that little voice, that censor that says, you're not good enough, tall enough, pretty enough, smart enough, whatever it is, that censor inside of us that is always kind of nagging at us saying, oh no, who are you to want to do this? You really have to deny that inner censor. Don't give it fuel and fight against it. And one of the ways you do that is to find mentors or compatriots, companions. Get your Lord of the Rings tribe together and go on the journey together, because
True.
You need those people. And sometimes it's not who you think it is. Those mentors are going to kind of help you along the way. And then I think, for me anyway, give back to whatever community that you are in. Give back in whatever way you can. I have a website. I write a blog on a monthly basis. It's Janet Irvin, WordPress.com. But one of the things I started last year is I have an author of the month. And I devote an entire one of my pages to authors, indie authors, self-published, regular mainstream, big bestsellers, and try to give them that little bit of recognition and to make you feel special I know how I would feel if somebody did that for me. So that's one thing. But I also get back to my community. And I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to do things in our communities, whether they be at food banks or historical society. I'm a big Springboro Historical Society advocate, or working for the city. I serve on a couple of the city boards, and I think that's important for you to give back to your community. The rewards, not always visible at first, but I think they are there. So what do you think?
That's all really good advice. That's all really good advice.
I wish someone had said that to me, because again, I wanted to do this a lot when I was a lot younger, and there wasn't really anybody there to hold that hand out and say, come with me, I'll show you. So if you're looking for a mentor, or you just want somebody to read a page or read a story, I'm here. You can find me. I have 2 Facebook accounts. One's my personal account, the other's for Dark End of the Rainbow. And then I have my website. So I'm glad to talk with people. I like it.
Guys, once we're done live, I'm going to link everything down below. Please go check out her blog. She posts very regularly, as well as both Facebook pages. So, and like she said, if you ever have any questions or you want to reach out to her, this is really who she is. She's not different behind the camera. She would love nothing more than to help you and to give back, like she said. But I do want to respect your time. But before we get to the last question, please, once this is done going live, go back to that section and re-listen to it a couple of times, because sometimes the best advice is kind of quickly heard and quickly forgotten. So please go back and just re-listen to that, take some notes, and let it digest into your soul. Really, really appreciate that advice that you gave. But the last question that I ask everybody that's on the show is there anything that's on your heart or on your mind right now that you really want people to know about? And this can be about anything, either you, a specific cause, or someone else, or maybe even a recap of everything you've already said.
Well, I think here we are at the beginning of January, a new year, 2018. It has been a tumultuous political year and continues to be. Wherever you are on that political spectrum, I could get really political, but we're not. It's not about that tonight. It's about the fact that each citizen has a duty, and one of the most important duties that we have is to vote. So along this year, inform yourself. I'm going to be working at the polls. That's another one of those things that I think is important. To expect as a nation. I think that is a really important cause for me right now.
I love it.
So
vote. I love it. I love it. Vote, guys. But I really appreciate you letting me come into your home and interview tonight.
I'm thrilled.
This has been a blast. I want to go pick up both these books right now and read them. I've heard nothing but great things over the last 2 years. So I want to support you in any way that I can. So please, everyone, like I said, the Amazon links are going to be there. Go purchase her books, read them, let her know how much you've loved them, and then get excited for the 3 new books that are coming out soon, and then check out her blog. But say before we wrap up.
No, thank you so much for listening. I hope that if there's been one little nugget of anything that kind of helps you over whatever hurdles you're facing, then it was all worth it.
I love it.
Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you all, and we'll see you on the next episode.